The play on the field, the courts, and the ice is just one part of sports. Behind every game are the people hard at work so we can enjoy the action. They're the owners, administrators, agents, broadcasters, and promoters who bring the games to life. Meet them when you go behind the game with Patrick Klinger and Bill Robertson. Welcome to Behind the Game, presented by Lexus of Wayzata and Lexus of Maplewood. I'm Patrick Klinger, president of Agile Marketing Partners. Alongside me, man who was president of the Comic Book Club at Cretin High School for 7 years. He's also the commissioner of the United States Hockey League, Bill Robertson. Hey, Billy, before we dig in, well, first of all, I want to know, what was your favorite comic book?
The race between Superman and Flash. It's a world famous comic book that I had when I was a kid, and I lost it. I don't know what happened to it. It's still my favorite
That's
comic
funny.
book.
I would have pegged you for an Archie. Hey, before we dig into the conversation, we want to say thank you to Lexus of Wayzata and Lexus of Maplewood. They've come aboard as the presenting sponsor of Behind the Game. So thank you to Charlie Swanson and the group out at Lexus for believing in Behind the Game.
Thanks, Charlie. We appreciate the support and look forward to many, many great episodes, including today's.
Absolutely.
Andrea, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Our guest today is the president and co-founder of Minnesota Aurora FC, Andrea Yoch. She is also president of her own company called Andrea Yoch and Company, a former VP of Minnesota United FC. She's also worked with the Ryder Cup. She's worked with the Super Bowl that was here in the Twin Cities, and she's a board member of Athletes Committed to Educating Students, which is ACES.
Yep.
Welcome to the show.
Thank you. I've worked on 2 Super Bowls.
2 Super Bowls.
Yeah, the early one, the 1992.
Okay.
Yeah.
That was Buffalo and Washington.
Yes, it was. And Jack Kent Cooke sat behind us in his suite with his, I think, 23-year-old girlfriend, probably at the time.
Great memory of the Super Bowl.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, we're going to jump right into the questions, and we're very happy to have Lexus as our new partner, and thanks again, Charlie. You've been a fixture on the Minnesota sports scene for many years, and everybody knows you. Share with our audience a little bit about your career and how you found a passion for being involved in sports.
Well, we don't have enough time for the whole career, but I started young. My parents were immigrants, and we lived in Baltimore, and so the way my dad was attempting to assimilate to America was by watching sports. And so we would watch Monday Night Football together. We lived a mile from Memorial Stadium, so we would go to baseball games. And I was lucky in that window, the Orioles were really good. And so that developed my love for baseball. Orioles won the World Series in '83, and I was kind of hooked. And as I started getting older, I just really was fascinated about this idea of being in sports like all the time. I did not realize that was a unique idea for a female at the time. So I started off that way, went to Boston College, joined the school newspaper, covered sports there, and then tried to get a job on the East Coast. But at the time, they were not going to hire a fresh out of college female. Now, I probably could get a job on the East Coast, but my boyfriend, who's now my husband, he's from here, was out here at law school. I was like, okay, I'll try out here. Got a job in southern Minnesota at the newspaper there, and have been here ever since. So that was in 1989, the year the Timberwolves started. So,
Andrea, as Bill mentioned, you're the president and co-founder of Minnesota Aurora FC, a women's pre-professional soccer team, which has had been an unmitigated success this year. It's shockingly successful season, really. What inspired you to launch the team, and what made you believe that it could be successful in a marketplace where the competition for the sports dollar is so intense?
So the idea was not mine. Matt Provartsky, who's one of our co-founders, had the idea, and the origins of it came from a group of people actually waiting for other people to start a team and then realizing it wasn't going to happen. And so they started talking about, well, why don't we just start a team? So Matt sent a message out to people who he knew who had been involved in soccer and marketing and just said, hey, do you want to come to a meeting? So there was about 20 of us went to an initial meeting during the pandemic in a park 6 feet apart with our masks on. And he said, hey, what does everybody think about this? And we got in the car after that meeting, and my husband, he came with us, and he said, you're going to do this, aren't you? And I'm like, yeah, 100% I'm going to do this. But I knew at the time, the way women's soccer was growing and the popularity of the sport, that there was a space. And what I always say to people is there are 3.5 million people in the Twin Cities. You don't need all of them in your stadium, right? For most of us, if you think about it, 3.5 million, it's 18,000 for hockey and Minnesota United, right? It's on a good day for the Twins, it's 25, 30,000, right? And so the only one that's really the behemoth is the Vikings, and they can get their 65,000, but we just needed 6,000, 3,000, 4,000, right? And that math works in your favor.
It's amazing. Tell us a little bit about how this pre-professional sports league and team works. I'm sure a lot of our viewers want to understand how this works with the players and the front office staff.
So this is a brand new league, the USLW. So the USL has existed with men's teams for years, and they have 2 levels. They have a pro level and an amateur level. And so that group decided to start a women's side. And it works a lot of the same as baseball and hockey do for the men, in that it's a summer league for players who are either in college or just out of college and want to continue their career. And there are leagues like that across the United States, but there are 40,000 women's soccer players in college programs in the United States, and there just weren't enough teams. And so this league, the goal was to have 30 teams when it launched, and we have 44. So clearly there was a lot of interest and a lot of players out there, and we have some players from overseas as well. So it's basically they can't get paid. We can pay for their housing, we can pay for their meals, but we can't pay them to play, we can't pay them for appearances. And if, as you know, in the NCAA rules, if you pay one player, even if they're out of college, it affects the scholarships of everybody else on your team. And so with the current NCAA environment, we have to be really, really careful. So so that's how they work. So we pay for their housing. We have 2 houses. Players are in 2 of the houses. Some are Minnesotans, so they live here. One of the families has another player living with them, and that's how we got there.
How do you fly? Is it charter or commercial?
We bus. So we are in the Heartland Division, and the Heartland Division is Kansas City, St. Louis, 2 teams in Chicago and Green Bay. And so there was one very long road trip to St. Louis, which I was not on. But then the team we're playing, when we got to the playoffs, they had to fly in because they were coming from the East Coast. But no, we have never been on a plane. Jefferson Lines has been an amazing partner of ours, and in fact, our bus driver has become a part of our story. So he's been amazing, Stephen Barry, and he knows everybody's name, he knows everybody's position. When they're on road trips, he shags balls and participates in practice. And so on our quarterfinal, we were down 1-0. And I went to say hi to Stephen. He was with his wife in the stands, and he's like, I got to get down there. I was like, what do you mean? He's like, I got to get to the bench. He's like, they need me. And I said, okay, I'll take you down in like the 80th minute. I figured he'd go for the last 10 minutes. He's like, I have to go now. And it was the 56th minute. I took him to the bench. We scored 2 minutes later, and then we won the game. So
good luck charm.
He's a good luck charm. So yeah, so the away game has become a very big part of our existence. So
neat.
Yeah.
The launch of the Aurora has really been a master class in marketing.
Thank you.
What you've done is really, really remarkable. How did your career prepare you for that? And have the other teams in the marketplace sort of reached out to you and asked maybe for some guidance or some advice?
You two know, right? It's people don't leave the Twin Cities. And so the relationships you make along the way really matter. So even when we were looking for somewhere to play, the ability to call Lester Bagley, who I know has been a guest here, right, and say, hey, we're starting this thing, we need a home, I know you have a stadium that's just kind of sitting there. That has made a huge difference. But even like with the media, these are people, Jim Suhan, I met in spring training when I went down to cover spring training for KFAN in, 1992, 1993, and Jim always made sure I had somewhere to go for dinner, right? I was really young. I was the only woman, and he always made sure that I was invited and included for dinner, right? It's, when I was young, I was at the Pioneer Press, and Patrick Royce was still at the Pioneer Press at the time, and they had a poker night around the Super Bowl, and they included me. And so those people, like, you try to stay in touch with over the course of your career, so then when this comes along, you're not going through 10 people to pitch your story, right? You have direct access, and I think that's been a big part of it. But also, I think the Twin Cities wanted something happy, right? I think they wanted something fresh, they wanted something new, and they wanted to support women's sports because we've all now learned that it hasn't been equitable. And so when we brought them an easy way to do that, everybody just jumped on board.
It's exciting. I mean, and throughout your career, you have met so many people in the Twin Cities, and when your name comes up, it always, people say it with a smile. So that's a credit.
Thank you.
That's a credit to you and what you've done, and that's probably a big reason why you're able to make all those calls and to get not only media people but other teams to follow along and cheer you on.
Yeah, because it's a quick ask. But even Eric, did you see what Eric Perkins posted on LinkedIn today?
Yes.
Do you remember how that started?
No.
So you don't remember this?
No.
The Care 11 was supposed to be covering the Swarm Championship game,
Okay.
and we botched it and did
yes.
something else.
Oh yes.
And then
I made those calls.
You made those calls, super angry over to Care. And John Remish calls me into his office Monday morning, and he says, "We really screwed this up for the Swarm. I need something big to go back." And then we went over there to eat our humble pie.
Now I do.
Right? You remember this now?
Yes,
and that's where the Eric Perkins whole thing came from, was from a massive screw up, but having the relationships and you saying, like, we got to fix this, but giving us a chance to fix it, you assuring the Swarm owners, who I can't remember their names, John and Arlada, right? That we were going to figure this out.
Yes.
And then we turned it into something fabulous.
It was.
Right? But that started with a screw up, and that started with relationships.
You bet. Absolutely.
Yep. Billy, you made an angry call?
Very few. I called
It was
John.
bad. It was a big screw up.
I called John at home, John Remish, who's a
Saturday
good friend,
afternoon.
and I said, "Hey, I don't know what's going on here, but we need your help right away." And he wasn't able to help, but he was certainly sensitive. And you're right, though. Sometimes those they said that term cliche, when life gives you lemons, make lemonade.
Yep.
That's exactly what that story was about, and
Yep.
that's a credit to you when you were at Care 11 to help.
When
figure
John
that out.
calls you into his office first thing Monday morning, it's not a good thing.
So Minnesota Aurora FC is a woman-led and community-owned. Tell me what community ownership means, and tell our audience really what that's about.
So in order to start a team or any business, you need money. And the founders are none of us are rich, right? Nobody has like a safe full of cash. So we needed to raise money, and there were a few other men's teams in the United States that were community owned. So we figured, let's raise money that way. So what we did was we created shares, 40,000 shares, and we put them up for sale. And you could buy 4 shares for $100 and become an owner of the team. Our initial goal was $500,000. We were going to be really happy. If we got to $500,000, we thought, okay, that's going to get us through 2 seasons. It's pre-professional. We don't pay our players. Our budgets are small. And then we hit the $1 million mark, and we sold out, and we left people out. Like, there were people who didn't get in on time that were really upset. And so people, we have 3,080 owners, and they all own shares of the team.
Are we going to see this like the Green Bay Packers, where you're going to announce another stock call and say we're going to do another 10,000 owners? Or
hopefully not this year. I barely stayed out of SEC jail on that one, because it's really, like, there's a lot of rules.
Yes.
And there was a lot of attorneys involved, but it's an SEC transaction. And so, and I'm a talker, and there were things I just could not say. And my attorney was constantly monitoring my interviews and telling me, like, this is all you. So we got to the point where we had owners in 48 states. And I wanted those last 2. I really wanted those last 2 states, Delaware and West Virginia. And we couldn't publicly give any information about the people who had already bought shares. So we couldn't do a campaign that said, come on, Delaware or West Virginia, get your act together, right? We just had to say, the shares were selling fast. That was about all we were allowed to say. So we're 48 states. We should be 50.
Besides ownership in the team, What does a stockholder get?
I'm not wearing the right scarf today, but the owners all had a special scarf. Before we were Minnesota Aurora, we were just Minnesota Women's Soccer. So we had a black scarf that has rainbow-colored states of Minnesota all around it. So if you ever see anybody in that, that means they're an owner in the team. They got certain discounts on season tickets. They got access to sales before everybody else did, some meet and greet opportunities. So it's very similar to what you do for a season ticket package. We did it for our community owners instead.
Right. You know, Andrea, there's so much more to running a team than simply putting a product on the pitch.
Yep.
There's player relations, there's travel, there's marketing, there's sponsorship, there's ticket sales. The list goes on and on, concessions.
Yep.
Tell us a little bit about how your front office is structured. Who does all of that heavy lifting to present a successful product on the pitch?
So there are 9 founders, and we're all broken up into lanes, basically. So according to everybody's sort of areas of expertise. So I'm marketing, sponsorships, media, which is my background. We have a general counsel, again, all pro bono. So Matthew Bergeron is our general counsel from Larkin, which is amazing. Then he brings in other people at the firm as necessary. We have a chief financial officer who is the budget manager at Ramsey County, Susan Earle. So she handles all the accounting and the budgeting. Matt Provartsky, who's, again, the creator of the team, he's our director of soccer operations. So the coaches report to him, and he handles all the travel. And so we have 2 people on merch, and we have somebody else on game day operations. And then I liaison with the Vikings for ticketing, which, by the way, since you have a ticketing background, never ever want to do again. The worst. It's the worst. So I handle all the ticketing, but luckily we use the Vikings ticketing system, and the Vikings ticketing office people have built everything, and they're amazing. But so we just literally, as things come up, we say who has capacity to take it on. And there's a bunch of stuff we're not able to do right now. Like, we haven't done as much community as we really thought we could, but we had no idea how busy this was going to be. So, and then I have important things like the mascot, which we'll be unveiling at the state fair. So again, passion area. So.
That's good. I mean, the Aurora, you're sold out every game, or selling out games.
Yep.
You're playing for a championship in your first year at a facility that's fairly new. I mean, an encore to all this. I don't know how you do that, but how do you keep the momentum in your mind? I'm sure you're already thinking about next year. We talked off air a little bit about this, but how do you keep that momentum pushing forward for the future?
Well, I think part of it is we need to get our players out. So about half of our team is from Minnesota. So we'll lose a good chunk of players. They're all going to go back to their programs and their homes Sunday probably. But the ones that are here are very committed to being out, and so we'll make use of them. Our coaches are all based here. So that's going to be kind of the next phase, is getting out into the community, doing things like the state fair. We really want to hold community clinics, and so continuing to be a part of that conversation. And then for us, it's a World Cup year for the men, but soccer is going to be a big part of the conversation. Yeah. And because we're pre-professional, our players are a lot more accessible than the pros are. And so if I look ahead, just even with my PR side, it's like, okay, soccer is going to be a big part of a conversation in December. I want to make sure we are also a part of that conversation, because we've gotten to the place in soccer for sure where the lines between the men and the women are not there anymore. The women can absolutely commentate on the men's game, and the men are part of the women's game. Everybody is very supportive of the sport growing. And so if CARE is going to do a story on the impact of the World Cup on the community, you know, they're just as likely to talk to us as they are to talk to anybody else. And so that's what I see over the next couple of months. More merchandise. We need to get more merch out. So we're already talking about Christmas and what do we do for the holidays and things. So we just keep going.
That's great.
Aurora home games are played at the Vikings Lake TCO Stadium, which is part of the Minnesota Vikings headquarters complex. You mentioned Lester Bagley and the Vikings a little bit earlier, but if you would share what your relationship is like with the Vikings and how they've been supportive of your first season.
Yeah, so my relationship, well, I had a relationship with the Vikings for years, you know, just doing other things, but this particular closeness started in 2016 when I was a part of the group that opened US Bank Stadium. And US Bank Stadium opened with a soccer match. And the match was struggling, the ticket sales weren't going really well, and Ziggy Wilf and Mark Wilf's kids go to school with the head of the soccer organization in New York, and everybody was concerned the building wasn't going to be full. And so I got a call from actually Steve LaCroix saying, hey, like, we need some help. And I had left Minnesota United, so I was trying to figure out what I was going to do next. And so I went to a meeting, and they just said, we need you to help us fill this building. And so since then, and since we sold out the stadium, and that was a huge success, I have had the opportunity to work with the Vikings on a number of projects. And in 2018, we had another International Champions Cup match here, and the stadium had been opened at that point, TCO, so we did promotional things out at the stadium. So that's how I saw the facility. And when Tottenham was in town, we went and had practice out there. We did, jersey swaps with the Vikings, and so I got to see what was behind the wall. And and that was all. Lester was my main point of contact because the Wilfs are a soccer family. They own Orlando City and the Orlando Pride. They were minority owners in Nashville before buying the franchises, and so they love soccer. And so the relationship with Lester started that way. And so when we got this team, he was one of the first calls. So it was like, hey, we need somewhere to play, because I knew that building was sitting there.
Very astute thought process and where you're going to play. I mean, you could think of a few places you could play outside, but I can't think of a better venue for your club than where you're at right now, and it's centrally located in the Twin Cities too. It's right off a freeway.
Yep, it's really easy.
Great.
And yes, but the partnership, like the perfect example of the partnership is, we said we didn't want to charge for parking. Right, it's really, really important to us that our games are accessible. So our general admission ticket is $13, and that we didn't want to charge for parking. And the Vikings gave up that revenue. We said, like, this is really important for us, and so they said, okay, if that's what you want. We asked them to keep concession prices low, and so there are not $18 beers at our games. And so all along the way, they have been responsive and supportive and understanding that what we are trying to do, what we've done, is very different than what their game day looks like. But at the same time, like 100% attention from their staff all the time. Like, I don't in any way feel like a second-class citizen. If we need something, if there's a problem, Lester and I will talk, Jeff Anderson, like it goes all the way through the organization. Even over to the football side, we have players show up at games. CJ Ham and his wife Steph are season ticket holders, which we didn't know until we saw on social. So it's really been a great relationship for us.
That's great. How about other teams in the marketplace? You talked about the Vikings and the way they've treated you. Including Minnesota United, but the Twins and the Wild and the other teams, I'd be curious to know, and even colleges and other high schools, have they all been, on board with what you're trying to do and understand this and been helpful?
Yeah, they've been great. Obviously, you always need to start with Cheryl Reeve. Rebecca Brunson actually hosted our launch event. We asked her if she would be a part of that. So Rebecca's sort of been in with us from the beginning. But opening night, Rebecca and her wife, Bobby Jo, and Cheryl and Carly were all there with their kids. The links have been amazing. So the links have been great. The Twins from day one, Sarah Fuller threw out first pitch. And the Wild, Jared Spurgeon is a fan. His wife, Danielle, played college soccer. And so a little bit of it is the players have been really engaged, so therefore the teams sort of followed along.
Sure.
And the same thing with United. We found out on social media, again, that 5 of their players were at our game on Sunday. We didn't even know they were there. So yeah, it's been really exciting and fun. We have a wonderful relationship with the Vixen, the Minnesota Vixen, who their owners immediately reached out. They helped us get into the state fair. They gave us their budget for traveling and everything else. And the same thing at the University of Minnesota. Like, they've been really helpful with, like, here's how we figure out hotels. Here's how we figure out busing. Here's where we order backpacks. Just all these things none of us knew. And so, yeah, everybody's been awesome.
Great.
It's great. Andrea, we're down to our last 4 or 5 minutes, and this is a question I really wanted to get in. So I wanted to ask you about your decision a month or so back to come out very strongly after the Supreme Court overturned Roe versus Wade. you didn't hesitate to come out with a statement on behalf of the organization condemning that decision. Was there any hesitation on your part or the part of those that are involved in running the team to sort of step into the political fray, particularly in your first season?
No, there wasn't. We founded the team based on community and equality and wanting to represent people that don't normally get to be represented. And so as a women's soccer team, we felt really strongly that standing up for the rights of women and speaking up was something that was important for us to do. We did delay it a little bit, so we had a chance to call our sponsors and just say, hey, we are going to do this. We just want you to know, because sometimes, when people are angry, they'll go right down that food chain to your sponsors and start calling everybody. And all of our sponsors were supportive and understanding. And even one of our sponsors told me that caused him to think internally about what he was doing within his organization to support the women. So it was absolutely the right decision. 9 people wordsmithing a statement takes a few hours. But it honestly showed that 9 of us worked together on Slack to create a statement that we all felt comfortable with, and that we were ready, and that we got that out really before most teams or leagues did, and we had a tremendous response from our fans. But part of it is you have to know your audience, right? We knew our fans, our family, our owners were all going to be supportive of what we did, and so that's why we did it. And people who weren't going to be supportive are probably not the right fit for this team anyway.
We're down to just a couple minutes. I wanted to ask you more on a personal level. Like I said at the outset, we followed your career from the start, what you've done here. Now you're a wife and a mother, and you've had a busy career. How have you been able to balance all that? I always like to ask people, in particular, that are very successful, how they balance both work and professional, and can you turn this off from time to time and just be Andrea and do what you want to do for fun?
I think the big thing for me, and I tell young women this all the time, is I did take a step back. So I had a number of years there, 10 years, 12 years, when my kids were at the critical age where I was lucky enough to work for John Remish, who let me work 4 days a week. And so there were opportunities that came to me that I had to say no to, because it was, I knew I couldn't do both, right? It was going to be travel, it was going to be weekends, it was going to be nights in sports. And so we had to make the decision not to go for those jobs and to take a step back. But then I was really lucky, because then when my kids were older and they didn't need me and I was ready to go back full time, there were opportunities there for me. And so that's when I went to Minnesota United, was I was ready to go whole hog again. At that point, my kids were 17 and 15 and, just needed me for food. So the big thing for me is I think women have to be honest about what they can really handle, and that this whole magical, we can do it all. Yeah, maybe if you have a staff, right? If you have a chef and someone to do the laundry and the carpools and everything else, because it's going to come out of somebody. It's either going to come out of you or your partner, right? Daycare has to be picked up at 5 o'clock. There's no way around that, right? And early in my career, actually, Dave Mona gave me some really good advice. So I was looking to go to a PR agency, and he said having both parents on a billable hour will destroy your marriage. And so that's when I switched and ended up staying with a salary, because I was like, whoa, that's really big advice. Yes. But so part of it is just being honest with yourself and what you can handle. And then for fun, I like going to other people's games. Like, put me over at Excel Energy Center and let me scream. That's all good. Yeah.
Andrea, thanks so much for being on Behind the Game.
Thank you.
Congratulations on your tremendous
Congrats.
Success this year. We're both fans, and we're fans of yours.
We just got to get it done.
Billy, great to see you. Always a pleasure, my friend. Safe travels.
Thank you.
And thank you for watching Behind the Game, presented by Lexus of Wayzata and Lexus of Maplewood. See you again next month.